Hello and welcome to Reportage. This is Danish bin Nabi. As ethnic violence rages in Manipur, I am joined by author Nandita Haksar to talk about her recent book, Shooting the Sun: Why Manipur Was Engulfed by Violence and Government Remained Silent. The book is published by Speaking Tiger. The book basically traces about the ethnic rift between Kukis and Meiteis in Manipur. Whosoever is interested in understanding what is happening in Manipur, Shooting the Sun makes an important read for him. More from the author. A lot has been written on the Manipur conflict, what has been happening there since now almost a year. But let's start from the basics. What is happening there? Who are these two ethnic groups, Kukis and Meiteis? What is their religion? Why are they killing each other?
Okay, that's a very broad question.
Yes.
Um, there are, I think, many reasons to, if we are to go into depth of this problem. And some reasons are maybe the roots lie in history, and some reasons are more recent. Um, if you look at it immediately, apparently it started on May 3rd because the Kukis and Nagas, the tribals, both communities are tribals, living in the hill areas, were protesting against a high court order which directed the government to look into the demand of the Meiteis, who are predominantly Hindu or Vaishnavite, demanding that they be included as scheduled tribes. And there was a demonstration in all the hill areas. At the end of the demonstration, on 3rd of May, the violence started. There are two versions. I am in no position to decide which one is right or wrong. But the Kukis say that it was the Meiteis who started it because they demolished or they damaged a memorial which was very important to them. The Meiteis say the Kukis actually started it. But honestly speaking, whoever started it does not explain the cause of why this violence went on for so long. So, yes, one demand is of, and it's a very old demand and a grievance of tribal people, both Kukis and Nagas, and it was a joint demonstration done by a joint organization at some, demanding that tribal people are given their due fair due in the development process. And that is a fact, and I could read out, I have quoted the figures in my book, Shooting the Sun, of the way that the hill areas have not been developed. The welfare funds, which have been supposed to be marked for them, have not been given. But that is just a very basic grievance which has been on for a long time. It does not explain why the violence is going on even now.
Explain for the viewers. In the past, do had there been ethnic links between these two groups, Meiteis and Kukis? Have they in the
No,
past also killed each other?
never, never. So
So this is
these
for
two
the
groups,
first time they are killing each other.
yes, for the first time, there's a very major clash between the Meiteis and the Kukis. That is correct.
So what about the government? Has the BJP government failed in foreseeing all this that was coming to going to happen in Manipur?
Yeah, but absolutely. I mean, both the government at the center and the state is of the same party. And there were immediate demands right in the beginning, May, June, by various groups within Manipur and outside political parties asking for a president's rule, as was done when there was a Naga Kuki conflict in 93. But I think this particular violence is much more than just a question of BJP being represented by the Hindu Meiteis and who are killing Christian Kukis, because there was a lot of violence by Kukis There was a lot of different varieties of violence. Actually, there was sorry, there was an attack on more than 300 churches within 3 days of that violence, and that has never ever happened before. So they were Meitei Hindus, or they were not Hindus actually. They had converted to a pre-Hindu religion called Sanamai. They attacked the churches, or that is what the report said. And this 300 churches, and by the way, just one synagogue also. And how can they were Meiteis attacking Meiteis? So it was much more complex than just BJP government versus a tribal Christian organization. It had much more complexity.
One of the major demographics that have been affected in this conflict are the women. On the both sides of the spectrum, we see women suffering a lot. What's your view? How do you view this? Because the women has been the most sufferers of this conflict. What are your views about it?
Okay, so there are two or three aspects of this, and I think we should really try and understand this. Um, the women have suffered, but so have men. And I think the more distinctive aspect of it is not that the women have suffered, but that the women, particularly of the Meiteis, have been in the forefront of attacking and the violence. So why was it? And who were these women? And I think it's important to understand that these women, the Meiteis, the Imas, they began off in the 70s as what we call the mashal bearers, or the patrollers, night patrollers. And it was a very inspiring movement. All of us who knew about it, who read about it, and then I actually saw it, was very inspired because it was an anti-alcohol, anti-drug movement. After that, 70s, during the insurgency, Meitei insurgency, these women used to patrol the streets and rescue young men who were picked up by the Assam Rifles or armed forces during that time. And this area was declared disturbed under the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. And these women would rescue these men from being tortured. But let me emphasize that they were very strong women. They played a very important historical role, but they were not feminists. They were not defending feminist cause. They were defending what they perceived as Meitei identity. So the fury with which you see these women, the hatred that they have spewed, which I find very difficult to look at even, calling for killing, calling for even rape of other women from other communities, is because they think that the Meitei identity is under threat. And so they are defending an identity which they think is going to be wiped out.
So it's
Is it?
yeah. Please go on. Please go on.
So these women, the history of these women also, because apart from attacking mainly the Kuki women, but also occasionally some Naga women, their history is so interesting because these are the women who fought against Armed Forces Special Powers Act. These women, were very dramatic protests which we saw after the killing of Manorama, in which 12 of these Imas, and some of them very, elderly women, some young women, who stripped themselves naked and had a banner saying, "Please rape us." And so that was the anger against Armed Forces Special Powers Act. It was a movement against armed. These are the women who fought that. So what has turned them into this very volatile and hate-filled women who are now actually fighting for a identity which needs to be talked about? Is what kind of identity, and why do they feel so threatened?
So it's basically fight for the identity on for both the sides.
With all sides, let me say all four sides, because there are in fact five very, you can say how many communities there are. There are, first of all, Meitei Hindu. There are Meiteis who have converted back to their pre-Hindu religion, the Sanamai. There is the Meitei Muslim, the Pangals, who in fact played a very positive role in this case. And there were, 3 if I'm not mistaken, there were 3,000 Kukis who they protected in this particular violence in this time. Then there are the Kukis, and the Kukis are Christian, mostly Baptist, and then there are Nagas who are again mostly Baptist. And of course, there is a traditional old community of Nepalis. There are old community of Marwaris, which are all called Mayang, which are a derogatory word for outsider, but they belong to Manipur. They've been there for centuries. So these are
And
all the various communities.
all the four groups
That,
have been radicalized.
yeah, I mean, in the sense that all of them, except the Mayangs, as far as I know, have armed groups. So all of them have armed groups, and some of them have more than one armed group. In fact, they have many armed groups, and it is that which gives this whole situation such a violent turn, because we have a Naga underground, which is one of the oldest armed struggles in our country. But there are many armed groups. So there is the NSCN, there is Naga and Meitei combination of an armed group, which is fighting them. There's a Zelialong armed group which is against NSCN. There is a Kuki, not a, but many armed groups among the Kukis who initially were actually Kuki commandos who were armed by the government of India or intelligence services. And then there are four. There used to be two armed groups among the Muslim Pangal of Manipur. Those are splits, but that's how. So you have all these armed groups all working in a very, very small state.
So, first step, if I'm correct, should be to disarm all these groups. Then we can find a
Mhm.
solution.
Yeah, but we can't disarm them because whichever one you disarm, they are under threat to their life. So I think the first step would be if some if there was a possibility of a intellectuals or middle class or whoever they are, people who will speak out for Manipur and in my perspective, for India. But there is nobody who can dare speak out. And we've seen the example of Brinda, the very brave policewoman, who all she was doing was stopping the drug, drug mafia. And in that stopping, what did she do? The person she actually arrested was Mr. Zhu, who was a Kuki, and she was told to release him according to her affidavit file, which she was made to withdraw, was a Meitei, who is Mr. Biren Singh, and his close friend, who is a Naga. So all communities are involved in the drug mafia. It's not one community.
I'm
And
coming to the
therefore,
drug question a bit later. Yeah.
okay. So I'm just saying that who can speak out? She did speak out. She talked about the drug, but she was silenced. There are human rights activists like Bablu who did speak out, and again they were silenced. Their lawyers were trying to do their work and going to court. They are silenced. There are journalists who try and bring out these issues, and they're in jail. So who will speak out for whole of Manipur or whole of or for India?
Ma'am, one of the important things which you have mentioned in the book is not only the governments, the civil society, the media, but the intelligence community too has failed in forcing what was going to happen in Manipur. Kindly enlighten us. Why do you write that even intelligence community in your book has failed to foresee the things?
I don't think they didn't foresee them. I think that they knew, because I don't believe that our intelligence is bad. I think they're very good, and there are many kinds of intelligence agencies. In fact, working in the Northeast, there are local intelligence agencies. There's RAW because it's a border area. There's IB. There's SIB. But I don't know, because that is something which is very difficult to trace who is involved in what. But all these government agencies, whether it's the armed forces or Assam Rifles or intelligence agencies or BJP or MLAs or the central government agencies, all have their role to play in this violence. And in various ways they have played. Some may be involved in some scheme, some may be involved in other scheme, some may be backing one organization. So this divide and rule which has been going on. So it is not. I actually said that it is everyone is involved in this violence, and nobody has a moral authority to stand up against it because they are all involved.
One of the important chapters in your book is the power of poppy. Explain it for the viewers how drugs have been playing their part as far as this Manipur violence is concerned.
Well, first of all, let me say one thing that when I first went in '82 to Manipur, and I was that was when there was a fact finding team. But in the valley, that's when I saw it. There was a very strict by the underground, the PLA, the Meitei underground. They were very strict about drugs, and apart from these IMAs and this women's movement, they would actually shoot even drug addicts. So they would not shoot to kill, but they would shoot in the thigh or in the leg. So at that point of time, the underground was, I do not, as far as we know, were definitely against drugs. So question arises, is that why has suddenly all this happened? So there are many factors. One, of course, as I've said in my book, is that it is poverty. The people who are growing the poppy are peasants, and largely, perhaps from all the figures that I've seen, are Kuki peasants or Kuki villagers who have no other source of income. Before that, there was ganja, which was growing also in Ukhrul. There's a study which I've quoted, in which the people who were growing that ganja say that we are trying to pay off our debts, or we are paying for education of our children from the income we get. So I am very clear on one thing, is that the people who are growing this poppy or ganja or whatever these things are not, cannot be responsible for the violence. They are very poor people. And Manipur, which used to be the rice bowl of the whole area, now is one of, I think I've quoted, a sixth poorest state in our country. So it is the growing poverty, impact of climate change, in which the yield from the fields is getting less and less. So whatever all, and then the irrigation projects are not helping. In fact, they have ruined the rice, the paddy or the economy. From all these reasons, the base of this whole poppy are the peasants who are growing this. Now the question comes is, who is protecting them? So yes, I'm sure some insurgents are protecting them, but even then, who is behind it? Who sells all this? Who makes those huge profits, which are enormous profits? So according to, again, the data and according to UN studies, this is coming from Myanmar. But in Myanmar, who is controlling it? Now, because of the situation in Myanmar, because of army rule in Myanmar, a lot of the insurgents there, or the ethnic armies, they are growing it. For instance, the Chin army on the Chin area, which is right on our border, both Mizoram and our Manipur border, there it has grown recently because that's the only source of income for them. And that impacts us. But again, even if these people are growing it and protecting these poppy fields, they are still not the real core, the real businessmen behind it, according to various studies, are the Chinese. But I would like to emphasize that this is not official China. I'm not saying that it is, and there is no evidence to show that it's a Chinese government. It's an illegal Chinese businessman. And they were responsible, for instance, in Laos, in Cambodia, and now in Myanmar, for a whole lot of illegal activities, including drugs. And very recently, now I think about a month ago, 1,300 illegal Chinese businessmen were handed over by the Myanmar junta to China. So this is the very complex political reality of Manipur.
So do we lack a proper policy for the Manipur from the government point of view?
Yes, of course. And that's not from now. It's from right from the beginning when Manipur joined. Manipur was an ancient kingdom and it joined the Union of India in 1949. So from that time, the development policy, there have been no development policy. There have been counter-insurgency policies. And so development is part of the counter-insurgency policy.
So
So
it's
they
not
have
only the
proceeded.
BJP who we should blame, but the equal blame goes to Congress governments as well.
Yes, of course it does, because in historically, but as of today, because the violence took place, yes, the BJP is to be blamed, but it is much more complex. The BJP's role in Manipur is more complex because if we see, they were Kuki members. It's not that they were Hindus, they were Kuki members of BJP. There are Naga parties who support BJP, and they're all Christian. And I'm saying this with full sense of responsibility, fairly fundamentalist Christians. They all supported BJP. More than that, it's not the Vaishnavite Hindus who are supporting the BJP, it's the Sanamahi who are against Hindus. So the question is why? So the BJP has been supported by all these groups. And the face of BJP is quite different in Manipur because these tribal people eat beef, they cannot stop that. So the face of BJP that we see in the rest of the country is very different when we see it in Northeast.
So, ma'am, my last question to end this interesting discussion. On the one hand, we see that opposition parties demand resignation of chief minister. But, for the viewers, explain it for the viewers. What is the way out of this quagmire which we are seeing in Manipur right now? Because yesterday also there were killings in the fresh
Yes.
violence. A policeman, a tribal woman has been killed. Again, violence is stopping to end.
So I do not have the prescription in that sense, but yes, this chief minister should go. That's a demand of right across
But will it
India.
suffice the people? If
No,
the
no,
chief
no,
minister resigns, will we see peace returning to Manipur?
no, no, because there's a logic now of it. And that logic is comes perhaps there can be two or three reasons. And I'd just like to say these two reasons. One is that this is the first time the difference of this is that it is not only governments that are involved, governments and people or insurgent groups. What is involved, I believe, are corporates. So the one allegation which several journalists and of repute have made in Manipur is that 22,000 acres of land has been earmarked for palm oil. And National Palm Oil Mission, which is located, of course, in the capital, but it is in all these states, now needs land in Manipur. So some corporates are involved in trying to get the land because whose interest is being served? I don't see anyone's interest other than people who want the land, and land is protected in Manipur. You cannot buy tribal land. And the second aspect is that I think Brinda, this policewoman who said it, and I think there's others, is that this perhaps we are seeing the first narco-terrorism, which is different from Punjab and Kashmir. It is a narco-terrorism where the governments or the state is involved and the policies of the state are being influenced by these drug wars. And drug wars, as we know from the experience of Latin America, are deadly. So where is the war? It is in More, which is the border of India and Myanmar. And this commando who was killed was at that border. This was the border where the Naga Kuki conflict took place. So this very deadly conflicts in which it's an international conflict. I think this is the first time we are seeing it in our country, and it really does not bode well for all of us.
Ma'am, you have drawn a dark picture. And is there a way out now? Because this is for the first time in independent India's history that we are seeing, as you labeled it, as an international conflict. You have also paralleled it with the South American war drug crimes. Do we see a way out of it? Has BJP government completely mishandled the situation in understanding what basically Manipur is all about?
I don't believe that they don't know, because I believe people have much more intelligence than you and I would have sitting here. And I always believe there's a way out. The question is who? And I just like to say the one thing is which to me symbolized this whole conflict. You have a brilliant, creative musician who has sung these Kuki land songs calling for the genocide of Kukis, whatever their role. But I would like to say one thing, that the Kukis are citizens of India. They're not outsiders. And they are people who have been here. They may have come later, they may have come earlier, but every single person who has been in this country after 47 is an Indian citizen, cannot be called an outsider. So this man, whose songs inspired all communities, has been openly calling for a genocide. He's got 14 songs, or maybe 16. I've stopped counting. How is he allowed to sing these songs? And how is he not stopped? Just one person singing and calling for genocide, and he can't be stopped. So who is the force behind him? And who is going to fight that force behind him? I don't have simple answers. They're not simple answers. But first, my task was to put the complexity before people in my book and hope that we together must find an answer. It's not for me to find the answers.
I completely understand, ma'am, and I do hope that we see peace returning soon to Manipur. Let me hold your book once again for the viewers so people read it. This reaches to most of the people, and I hope that people do read your book. Thank you very much for talking
Thank
to
you.
me. Thank you, ma'am.
Please subscribe to our channel Reportage and press the bell icon to remain updated.